Oh man, I love those ideas. Any more thoughts people want to share in the chat? I'm all ears. I always learn from these audiences, so please do add some of your thoughts in chat. While you're doing that, I'm going to share with you some ideas that come from stress research. But you guys have already hit on a lot of these themes. So we always want to start with a sense of self-awareness, right? There are a lot of self-assessment tools, which is one of the reasons why we started out with the self-assessment today. We just sort of want to get a gauge of where we are personally with our stress and burnout. Another foundational element is self-care, which is, Julie, again, you guys touched on this theme already. Exercise, nutrition, rest, getting those annual health checks are so important. The brain is an organ. We tend to forget that, but it's an organ just like the heart is. So if we don't take care of it, we can't expect healthy emotions to come out of an organ that we're not actually taking care of very well. Again, this is another thing that you guys already touched on. Being able to say no and setting those boundaries is going to help us maintain that very important work-life balance. So we want to evaluate our workload and our priorities, course correct as we need to. Organizations, of course, also have their own role to play in helping us maintain a proper work-life balance. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. Social connectedness and peer networks, these are really important. This turned out to be really important during COVID, especially with healthcare workers. There have actually been research studies that have showed that social support networks protected them against compassion fatigue and burnout. Thank you for adding those things into the chat, Julie. I really appreciate that. Addressing burnout factors at their source in the workplace, the things that are under our control, things like communication, conflict, relationships, workflow inefficiencies that we have say in. Of course, organizations are going to have their own role to play, but the things that are under our control, we try to address and resolve. Also, we need to be aware of how our own moods and thoughts are contributing to our stress. And again, I will use myself as an example. So not only do I tend toward pessimism, but I also tend toward perfectionism. And this is something that if you don't suffer with it, boy, does it cause a lot of stress, right? It adds a ton more pressure that we don't necessarily have to put onto ourselves. So just being aware of some of the thought patterns that we use and some of the coping mechanisms that we use for stress and how those things can sometimes work against us can be helpful. Thank you, Beth. The ability to prioritize decreases as stress increases. What do folks do to counter that? I would love to get your thoughts on that. I'll give you my personal take on that, which is, and I think that the people who just spoke to burnout already touched on this. When we are at a certain very high level of stress and burnout and our anxiety levels are through the roof, sometimes our brains are so, they're spinning so fast that we can't get ourselves out of that stress and burnout loop. We just cannot do that. And the way to get ourselves out of it is to allow the rest of the body to relax first. So when Julie said, let's take a walk, let's get out, let's take a break, let's sleep in, these are all ways of helping the body to dial down some of the tension and some of the, it's just the anxiety and stress that's built up in the rest of the body. If we allow the body to relax first, that somehow unlocks the things that yes, thank you, Leslie. This is also really important. Deep breathing, which increases the oxygen delivery to the brain. That's also going to help. So all of these ways that you support the brain in trying to get back online so that we can all be thinking about and processing and how to prioritize. These are all things that can be helpful.